Hello DeFi lovers and haters and active players in the space. Long time no hype. What is the state of DeFi in 2023 and are we expecting, is there any potential for the future? All this and more in this particular video. So I won't waste your time. Let's get it. Welcome back to the Crypto Postman, guys, where we are steady serving you all the news and the juice as it has to do with crypto and the entire blockchain industry at large. If you are yet to subscribe to our channel, please consider doing that right now. Join the community so that you can stay up to date with all the source that we are serving on all things crypto. That said, let's get into the DeFi talk. Now we know that in the year 2020, during the COVID season, DeFi experienced what we will call summertime. Things were going great. People were making a killing, and others were dreaming of having a house in the Hamptons somewhere. All those dreams, for some, maybe for many, went up in smoke when the winter started setting in. And the winter did set in very hard. As a matter of fact, from the start of 2022 up until right now, the total value locked in DeFi is down a staggering 75%. If that doesn't say winter, I don't know what else does. And the thing is, one may argue that one of the biggest, players or one of the biggest factors or one of the biggest technologies in the DeFi space, in decentralized finance, are the DEXs, right? The decentralized exchanges. You can argue that that's the biggest thing about DeFi. You can argue, it's arguably the biggest thing. But even the DEXs are not unaffected by this winter. As a matter of fact, we are seeing lower and lower volume. But it's not all dark news. There seems to be some good news about DeFi right now. The gas fees on the Ethereum blockchain, you remember the gas fees that were astronomically high at some point in 2020 and some parts of 2021, have been drastically reduced thanks to some layer 2 solutions, layer 2 blockchains that are taking away much of the load from the main net. Chains like Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon, the L2 solutions. Another thing to be really thankful for is that scaling will continue on the Ethereum blockchain post-merge, of course, obviously, as more and more capital flow into these L2 projects. These layer 2 solutions are doing such a great job that people are getting interested in them. And as more people are getting interested, value flows in, liquidity flows in, which is generally good for the space. But right now that all the hype has died down, right now that we're no more in summertime and everyone is shivering cold due to the winter, what is the space of decentralized finance right now? Let's get into that for a bit. Now, even though all the hype is gone and many of the players in DeFi are either out of the picture or working in the trenches, some of the popular figures, some of the popular players, some of the popular projects are still out there. They still remain. You can see Uniswap is still out there, being the DEX that it is, the biggest DEX, I would argue. Not I would argue, it's by far the biggest decentralized exchange. Then Curve is still out there swapping stable coins. Synthetics is still out there building those synthetic projects, and the YDX is basically just roughing it out to the derivative side of things, right? Now, let's look at some of the problems facing DeFi currently. It's important to look at the challenges. Now, if you look at this report by CoinMarketCap, it says there's so much going wrong in DeFi that it's hard to know where to start, right? But let's look at some of these problems in detail. All DeFi projects with traction are speculation-based primitives. Most of all the money that people made, right? Most of the projects on DeFi that attracted a lot of interest in 2020 were basically just speculation. Now, speculation makes the rich richer, and then some lucky guys can make a ton of money, but most guys are burned out. And because it's speculation based, when it comes down to it, a lot of people are burned, and that's a serious problem. Onboarding new users is a cumbersome process requiring deep education. Retaining users sustainably is a challenge in itself, and the overall UX of the space is far from ideal. The speculative nature, so let's look at this. The speculative nature of DeFi is a blessing and a curse. A blessing because dopamine hits are an easy sell, but it's also a curse because most of the DeFi most of DeFi has little to no real world utility. And because these coins have no real world use, they have no real world utility, as soon as the hype goes away, the money goes away. There's no reason for people to keep their money there when the hype is not going. And so we'll keep having these, these bull runs followed by winters, this bust cycles, until we actually start working on projects that have real world use cases. Then we can stop, or at least limit, we can have lesser fluctuations and volatility in the market. But for me, one of the biggest challenges for DeFi right now, just take a look at this, right? Onboarding new users is a cumbersome process requiring deep education. This is a problem, because if you try explaining DeFi to anyone who's nowhere being tech savvy, it sounds as though you're just babbling. It's easy to sell crypto. It's easy to sell crypto as securities. You buy in, the coin does great, and then you take the money out. But DeFi is a lot harder to explain and to sell. And that's a problem. The education is a problem. People need to know what the space is about so that they can be able to stay when the hype is all gone. And then, of course, there's the issue of the hacks. The hacks. Let's take a look at some of the figures here, right? Sorry about that. Consider the hacks in DeFi which grow in volume every year. You can see that in the year 2020, this is the figure for the hacks in 2020. In 2021, it went up to $1.3 billion US. And in 2022, look at the ratio of the blue is like the lost, the hacked, volume. And then this area, whatever this color is, I would say pink, but some people will not agree with me, so I'll just call it this color. Whatever this is like the volume recovered. So you can see that a lot more was lost than recovered. That is a huge factor, right? Because we've still not gotten things right on the code level. Still a lot of vulnerabilities to be sorted out. A lot of, projects are still prone to these hacks because of bugs in the code and all that. I hope we get past this phase. I know it's a new space, it's a new technology, very, very young relatively, but we need to get past this phase really quickly. Then finally, let's talk about the future of DeFi. I think that most of the problem is that DeFi holds as a space, as a technology, or it's basically tied to the promise of the blockchain. It's tied to the promise of cryptocurrencies. And what is the promise? The promise is that it's self-custodial. You are going to be able to have access to your funds. You own your funds and you control your funds. You can't be locked out. You are basically the controller of your money, which means that you're basically the controller of your destiny. And of course, with great power comes great responsibility, because if you lose those funds, there is no customer service to call to say, hey, I lost my funds, can you help me get it back? It's most likely gone. It's permissionless, you can't be blocked. Even if the country that you are in, or the space, the region where you are in, places a ban on these things, you can use a VPN, right? So it's permissionless. You can't be blocked from it. You can't be restricted from joining it. It's also immutable. That means all the records are there, and they cannot be changed. Which brings me to the transparency issue. These are things that are lacking from the current financial system. And if we can be able to get things right, at least on the code level, on the education level, I think that the space obviously will see a return to prominence. Now, will the next bull cycle bring another cycle of hype to DeFi? Let me know what you think in the comment section. We're certainly open to interacting and learning in that particular space. So join the community and let's grow together. If you're not yet subscribed, first, like this video, then subscribe to our channel. Remember to ring the notification bell so that you can know when next we post. And until I see you next time in the next video, be blessed.